even when the good guys on the right side, bad guys on the wrong side, there's war politics on both sides. When you go to war, you're building a lot of jeeps and tanks and other toys to play with. And that's very popular. So you spill the lifeblood of our young men, lifeblood of our women. That's why, to me, that's too heavy. These kids are so rich anyway. Of course, making money is an adventure now. It's a symbol of power. And there's only so many ice cream things you eat one time. Only so many private jets you can fly at one time. Only so many houses you can live in at one time. So money is power.
So population management, population control, keeping the levels of population under control, isn't it? Really, it's more about the money and the power.
Yes, but they do seem to be quite dedicated to the idea of the entire population control. We said we replace ourselves. I think it's something like a married couple needs to have 2.5 kids. Not the sophisticated. In order to replace ourselves. So if you're having 3 kids, you'll have 1.5 kids too many.
We've just had the election in Britain. I don't think anybody expected a whole parliament. What were your thoughts on the whole election process? I mean, especially where I'm from in Sheffield, a lot of ballots didn't get counted before they were in the queue. Didn't get anything when I think they shut the doors and my votes didn't get votes.
In the United States, quite often, we have very serious problems with automated voting, where you're not sure if you vote, not electronic voting, where it's so easy to manipulate machines. Traditionally, in the United States, when we go to people just get off work unless you get to vote. The manager of the voting was from outside. Everybody in line now is able to vote. Even a few minutes after 7. There was one because they can vote. One of the people got out voting when they late to the polling place.
They were in the queue. The queues were still quite long at 10 o'clock and the polling station was supposed to close. But at 10 they just shut the doors and everyone who had been queuing for it had just been told no. They didn't say you should come into the building and then we'll shut the doors. They completely shut the doors. Some people have to work really late and everything. I still don't know. Now there's the Parliament, you've got John Osborne, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's running basically the British money. When it comes to these meetings, we don't consider this shit. I wouldn't expect he would be, especially if you watch twice.
What's his name?
George Osborne. He's been the last 4 or 5 years.
We have an identified issue.
Also, I mean, the head of the Labour Party was Gordon Brown. I know he came in the early 90s. And now there's they're trying to decide who's going to be the head of the Labour Party. There are other people up for it. One of them is Ed Balls, who was the Education Secretary. Also a Bilderberg member, so do I put my money on him or?
That's what you do that. That's a horseback that's from far away. I promise them that the video thing for half an hour at 7:30.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about this year's meeting in particular, or is there any questions that I haven't asked or anyone else hasn't asked that could do with answering?
No, I think we've covered it. Yeah. Danny yesterday said he'd be here later. He's been chasing Bilderberg for a long time.
Do you know what time he'll be turning up?
Well, he's doing some kind of interview, broadcast interview in Barcelona. And, he thinks he'll be back shortly after 7. 7:30 afternoon interview. I'll be doing it from right here though.
I've run out of questions, so I think I've covered all I needed
Another
to.
question.
Anybody else
Yes.
identify any Bilderbergs by sight today?
There's been a lot of tension in the Middle East lately between
I can hear you.
There's been a lot of tension in the Middle East between the Israeli and Turkish governments, and as we all know, between the North Korea and South Korea, and a lot of people are speculating that the bigger conflict is being sort of prepared. What do you think about it?
I don't think we're going to have a war there.
Like a bigger conflict to unite the countries? Something like the European.
I don't see any unification of North and South Korea. North Korea still calls itself hard communist. South Korea says it ain't hard communist. North Korea kills its own citizens for the fun of it. That little fool who runs North Korea lets his own people starve while he lives the high life. I see no unification of North and South Korea. It's possible that there'll be a military incident like the sinking of the South Korean vessel to kill a few people. In fact, the group of 20 is finishing up meeting. Let's see, today's Saturday, is it? Stay confused. In Korea on Saturday. And that, even holding the meeting in Korea was an effort to disguise the Bilderberg meeting. All these years, the group of 20, back when it was a group of 8, an expanded group of 20, if they met in Europe, you knew Bilderberg would meet in Europe. If they met in North America, we knew Bilderberg would meet in North America. Traditionally, about a week ahead of the group of the G8 or G20, so they could send their orders to them. This year they're meeting at the same time as Bilderberg, almost, well, a couple of days overlap here. And meeting of all places in this town in South Korea. So, but that attempt to throw everybody off guard failed because here we are.
Just going back to what you said just before you asked this question about anyone identifying anyone. Yesterday I went down to the roundabout about 6 o'clock in the morning. About 7 o'clock I saw a car pull up with the letter K in it. Now that seems to be the Bilderberg's pass to go through. I don't know what the K signifies, it might be nothing, but...
Was it a purple thing on the windshield? Was it a windshield sticker?
I didn't see it.
Just a white sheet with a big black K.
Yeah, I don't think I saw any purple sticker. But I wasn't looking for it, but I just saw the K.
Yeah, they've done that in your pass. It'd actually be a windshield sticker with a big blue thing. And I think it had a B on the blue. And that meant that these guys were okay, they've been pre-cleared. That big long limousine with the darkened windows could roll in. And they hope that the Henry Kissinger cannot be identified. I remember seeing shot in the face. I think Germany was an early guy. And he said, "Hello, Henry!" Space froze. In fact, torturing Henry Kissinger is kind of fun anyway. He's an affected ass. He's been in the United States since he's 14 years old. Ran from Hitler's Germany along with his brother. I never knew his brother, but people who know both of them say his brother never had a German accent. And while David Rockefeller's always been Mr. Rockefeller, he has the same PhD from the same Ivy League school as Dr. Henry Kissinger. So a few years ago at some kind of reception in Washington, went over to Kissinger and that sweet little lady. Dr. Kissinger, the Bilderberg meeting, name of the town and location, dates precisely. This man with long white hair in a black business suit said to you, I read what he said to him, what was your response? He said, that was a private meeting. That was a private meeting. Catch him off guard, he forgets to affect the German accent, which he thinks distinguishes him some way. It does, but not in a becoming way. You'll always be Dr. Kissinger.
The weird thing about this car that I saw, I took a picture of it, obviously this camera's not very good, but I actually saw it with my own eyes. The lanyard said Gonzalez. And,
Gonzalez?
Yes. And then there was a Spanish guy about 30 seconds later said he thought he just saw Felipe Gonzalez. But this is the weird thing, he was driving the car.
That's happened.
That does happen. I just presume that they were all chauffeured in. And
most are. You say Gonzalez?
Yeah.
And his first name?
Felipe. He was the ex-president of Spain, is that correct?
Is what?
The ex-president of Spain, or the ex-prime minister of Spain? That is correct.
And you're sure that you saw that name on his...
I saw that with my own eyes. I mean, the camera didn't catch it, but I saw it because the surname was in big letters, whereas his first and middle name would be in small letters. But I saw that and I thought that was a bit strange that he was driving the car and there was nobody in the back. But if you say that that's not unusual.
Yeah, it is unusual. There was another occasion when some big ass drove his own car to the Bilderberg site. I guess he just liked it. But most of them prefer the pompousness of being in the big black limo or jumping out of a helicopter. Because that means you got to be important.
Tell you about our experiences. We're staying on the campsite that's about 5 minutes away down the road, and it's just we're getting harassed. I mean, I've been detained 3 times, asked for ID and things like that, which is obviously nothing new to you. You've seen this happen many, many times.
Well, yesterday I got all the way up to the palace gates. There's 2 or 3 deployments on the way. I explained that Bilderberg's expecting me. And the last stop, this cop snarled, "Yes, Mr. Tucker, Bilderberg is expecting you, but you're not welcome." They're not always very hospitable to me. It amused me one time we were meeting in Georgia. Got there early enough so that I checked into the hotel a few days in advance. And knowing that I'll be banned at high noon on Wednesdays, the sawhorses go up, the guards come out. And this guy sitting next to me I'm sitting maybe a little lounge reading the local newspapers. I said, I'm the manager of the hotel. I gave his name out. I said, Bilderberg's very unhappy that you're here. I said, well, they've not been very hospitable. Then I noticed that everywhere I was inside the hotel or the grounds, there's a skinny little gray-haired man in a plain suit just nearby. So it occurred to me, he's followed me. I get on the elevator, he goes on the elevator. Get off on that floor, he gets off. Go down to my room. And this time, I waited about 10 seconds and jerked the door open, and there he is. You seem to be in love with me, aren't you? Okay, I'll be getting up about 5 in the morning. Then first we go down to the coffee shop and have coffee. And then we're going to get a stack of newspapers. And after that, I'll be coming back up here for a while. I'll give you a better estimate of time and how long it'll be back. Wouldn't say a word. But he was always in my presence until at high noon I had to leave, and he was on the phone reporting. It was the same place where some former FBI men, readers, who had met me at the airport, drove me just about 40 miles from Atlanta, some resort. As soon as I got into the hotel, I got a call saying, I had asked for a room, which I knew would be closer to the demagogues. And when I got in, we started, before I unpacked my other pair of socks, the phone rings, hotel front desk. Oh, we know you wanted room such and such. You could, it's just been cleared. You can have it now if you want to go down. Oh, sure. So we trot down. As soon as we got inside the room, these old former FBI men turned over the couch. Well, he's going around with a little gizmo. He made noise on the couch. He turned it over and sliced open the bottom of the couch, pulled out a bug and handed it to me. He said, went over to the boss and said, there's a bug on your telephone too, but we better not knock out the plastic and pull it out, but you need to know it's there. So we had a lot of fun knowing that they're eavesdropping on the calls. I'd have somebody give me a call and explain that, too bad about Henry Kissinger's heart attack. Too bad about Nelson Rockefeller falling and breaking his leg. Just give them something to think about, as long as they're going to be eavesdropping anyway.
Is the security more lax this year? Is it the same? Is it more? I mean, the hotel seems to be very well situated.
Every year, always, if you have armed guards. The only variation is when they meet in Germany, the National Army is hired to be the person line of defense. Otherwise, it's the local or state police. And Bilderberg pays well in advance. It's probably $800,000 to reimburse the locality for overtime for cops. Most of them are willing, I can make a time and a half on this weekend. And they'd rather the cops to be happy about their assignment. So they do reimburse in advance. The check the cop will get will be from the state or the police department. So they've been reimbursed in advance, so the taxpayers do not take a bath on the Bilderberg security.
So it is the taxpayers that pay for the...
Not the taxpayers.
Who pays for the meetings and for the police?
Bilderberg pays in advance. So they deposit the money, then they write their own checks and state checks and local police department checks to the cops. As I say, that's pocket change in Bilderberg.
Sorry, can I just...
Sure.
I didn't quite hear that. Did you say that the Bilderberg group pays for the policing of
Yes.
this event?
They pay well in advance. They'll call up. Of course, these things are planned far in advance. We'll need 300 uniformed armed guards outside. What's your high estimate of what it will cost? We'll send you the money in advance, and you reimburse them with your state checks.
I was on the understanding that it was, like you said, the taxpayers footed the expenses of the
Well, people think that because they get a check from the state or from the local government, but Bilderberg reimburses in advance. Well, I'm not trying to say that Bilderberg kids are good guys at all, but they have so much money that...
Doesn't that then make private security in effect?
they also have their own private security.
Yeah, but if you're paying the government for police protection, then that in some way kind of makes it private security. I mean, because normally
Well,
the
private
police
employees for that
force
reason.
is funded by the taxpayers to protect citizens. And police the
Well, taxpayers fund it when the police are there to soccer match to keep violence from spreading. Taxpayers pay for it if there's a big carnival or something. But Bilderberg reimburses in advance. I hate to be saying nice things about the kids, but accuracy is to a newspaper what virtue used to be to a movie.
Unless he's something wrong. Unless he's being self-deprecating. It's like they golf
Maybe just another question. Do you think Bilderberg is trying to establish Europe as rather one sort of big nation?
Oh yes.
So do you,
All this time it's almost one big nation.
Yeah, right.
When you have a European Parliament that can impose laws on member nations, when you have a European court that can strike down the laws of your country,
yeah, true.
you lost the lion's share of sovereignty. If an international organization can impose laws, whether you like it or not, on your country, or even abolish the laws of your country, passed by your parliament or your Congress.
Do you think they have sort of triggered the crisis of Greece and might trigger a crisis in Spain in order to accelerate that process of like forming a big European nation?
Well,
It's like the countries that have to like unite together to fight the crisis. Do you think that might be part of their agenda?
Yes, it has. It was some years ago that the British became aware of it. They were outraged in Britain to find that some acts of Parliament had been struck down by the European Court. They were enraged to learn that the European Parliament passed laws that they imposed on Britain. In fact, they backed up a little bit because in one case, this greengrocer in England posted the prices of his products by the euro and by the pound. Well, Britain never has accepted the euro, they still use the pound. But he was sent to jail for a few days because the sign was supposed to be under European law, prices only in euros, not euros and pounds. They were outraged to learn that, so they backed off from that a little bit to cool things off a bit. And now, as I understand in Britain, you can list your prices in pounds. You don't use the euro anyway, so what's the reason for listing euro? But that helped generate a lot of outrage, made the British more aware of the fact that when they joined the European Union, they're surrendering huge amounts of national sovereignty.
So Britain will join the euro eventually?
Pardon?
You think Britain will join the euro eventually?
Not for a long time. The strong outgoings in Britain, thanks to the late, well, she's not late yet, but she's deep Alzheimer's, Lady Thatcher. She was denounced by Bilderberg. Attended one meeting, had nothing to say, didn't like it. They decided they had to get rid of her as prime minister, so they had to put a boy named John Major, a trapeze artist, in as prime minister from our own party. About a year later, she was at a reception in Washington. I had the pleasure of talking to her for a moment and asked her for her reaction to being denounced by Bilderberg. I remember she used the word tribute. She said, a rough paraphrase, I consider it a tribute to be denounced by Bilderberg. It had harsh words to say about any head of state who surrendered any sovereignty to an international organization. I can understand why they didn't like her, but I did.
A lot of people are speculating that global conflict will be the ultimate solution to bring the nations together. What's your opinion on that?
Well, Bilderberg, hoping even this year they're trying to carry on the fiction of global warming, partly for profit. They discovered, these children of smokestack industries discovered it in the global warming in the early 90s. And boy, that became a big issue for them. It still is. They're still trying to keep the global warming alive when actually it's not man-made at all, according to the leading climatologists and other scientists who specialize in that field.